Prince Harry making his most raw comments following his two-day appeals hearing on his downgraded security. Harry saying he is exhausted and overwhelmed. Royal expert Patricia Treble joins us now with the latest. Patricia, Prince Harry says his worst fears have been confirmed, and he believes the removal of his security was a calculated effort to force him and Meghan back.
Yeah, these really emotional comments were made after his unexpected appearance at the two-day appeal in his security case. And these are always like really dry, and they can be very contentious hearings. And he looked pretty defeated at the end of it, I will say, which might explain why he was talking in such unfiltered terms. And look, I've been covering all his legal cases for a long time, quite closely. And this whole thing about them using security to try to get them to stay came out of the blue. And I'm wondering where that's coming from, because he doesn't really back up those vague allegations. And also with those talk came this kind of almost a veiled threat that if he doesn't get the security that he feels he's entitled to, he's going to go on the offensive. And there was talk of, more books, maybe a podcast to reveal all. So I've got to say, I don't think that these interviews really are going to help in any way with his relationship with his family.
All right. Well, listen, you mentioned a podcast, and let's shift gears to Meghan, because her podcast ratings are out, Patricia. And she was also recently in New York to attend a Broadway show, but it was her motorcade that made more headlines?
Yeah. So let's deal with the podcast. She did really well. So her first episode is out. It's Confessions of Female Founders. And I was checking, and she came in at number 8 on the business list. And you might think that's slow, but the business list is incredibly competitive. And so she did really well with this brand new podcast. And then celebrated, obviously, going to New York. She went to go see Gypsy on Broadway, Audra McDonald, the fabulous Audra McDonald. And what should have been a nice, fun, keep yourself in the public eye thing turned negative. The New York Post criticized her because she went about a mile in New York City in a 4-car convoy. And as the Post said, a little over the top, pointing out that even the Kardashians make do with 1 or 2 cars when they're in the busy streets of New York. So is any press good press? I'm going to take that, I think.
Okay. All right. Making positive press are the King and Queen and their state visit to Italy last week, which was a big hit with some crowds.
Yeah, it was a big hit, and it was a really positive thing. And when you're looking at these state visits, look, all the events are very formal. It's very scripted. So you're always looking for these little moments. And it really, the big highlight for me came on their 20th wedding anniversary. We talked about that. The king wore the tie he wore 20 years ago. She wore a reworked version of her wedding outfit, I'm going to say. And he was addressing the Italian Parliament. And that's where we got a little bit of Canadian content, because he mentioned that as King of Canada and the United Kingdom, he was going to Ravenna the next day for the commemorations marking the 80th anniversary of the liberation of that province by Canadian and British forces. And as a lovely bonus during this trip, the Pope was well enough that they were able to visit him for a very short private visit. So all around, it was a really, really good state visit.
All right, Patricia Treble, good to see you as always on this Monday. Thank you so much for this Royal Roundup.
You're welcome.